Today's show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. One-click protection for all your devices. Visit expressvpn.com/inside. The much-anticipated sequel to Breath of the Wild got a new trailer during Nintendo's E3 2021 Direct, and as soon as it dropped, so did a number of very ambitious and somewhat interwoven fan theories. Forum users, game sites, YouTubers, and industry personalities all started posting incredibly bold theories about the premise of Breath of the Wild 2, its relation to the overarching Zelda timeline, and even playable characters that aren't Link. Now that some of the dust has settled, we're rounding up some of those bombastic ideas and common threads to share with you. Fair warning, it's a ton of speculation at this point, but we thought it'd be fun to dive in, if only for just a little. Playing as Zelda is a thought that fans have been entertaining since well before the release of the first Breath of the Wild. But Kinda Funny Games' own Barrett Courtney shared an even grander vision when he tweeted, "We're playing as Ganondorf in Breath of the Wild 2. He was the hero from 10,000 years ago. Take it to the bank." The tweet also links to an hour-long video where Courtney and Tim Geddes get into the inspiration behind the bold claim. There's a ton of just kind of flat-out wild conjecture in there, but Courtney isn't entirely alone. At least, somewhat. A lot of fan theories about Breath of the Wild 2 come from a Sheikah tapestry that resides in Impa's house in the first Breath of the Wild. The hero depicted fighting Calamity Ganon appears to have red hair and a snout, which is more evocative of Ganondorf than Link, meaning the hero prophecy in Breath of the Wild indicates that Ganondorf was potentially the first legendary hero, or maybe the prophecy was misinterpreted somehow. Courtney and other fans have pointed out that the corpse assumed to be Ganondorf in the Breath of the Wild trailers looks to be wearing a similar tunic to the hero in the tapestry, and it also resembles the tunic Link is wearing whenever he is shown adventuring the skies above Hyrule. Somehow, this has led some to believe that while playing Breath of the Wild 2, players will be able to swap between playing as Ganon and Link, one on the surface and one in the skies. Since we never really see Link's face during the gameplay clips in the new trailer, many others are sharing alternate playable character theories as well, even suggesting Nintendo would go as far to swap the character model in the trailer to prevent spoiling a grand reveal for a playable Zelda later on. The argument there is that Zelda is wearing adventurer's garb in both trailers, and since she's shown falling in both as well, the idea is that you might play as Zelda on the surface of Hyrule and Link in the skies. Now, while sharing some commonalities, the alternate playable hero theories are a little far-fetched given Nintendo's track record with the Zelda formula, but that hasn't stopped some from suggesting you might play as all three wielders of the Triforce at one point in the latest Zelda game. One on the surface, one in the skies, and one underground. Honestly, it all seems pretty unlikely, but it's kind of fun to think about, I guess. To go even deeper, some are theorizing that the drop of water shown in the new Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, just before Link is warped up to the Sky Islands, might actually be a reference to some type of time travel mechanic similar to Ocarina of Time or Link to the Past. This might line up with some of the playable Ganon theory stuff, in which some are imagining we could get the backstory to the first hero from 10,000 years ago, which of course might actually be Ganondorf according to the tapestry theorists. Again, it's a lot of speculation without a ton of support. However, there's probably a bit of truth in there somewhere. For example, going back to the idea that time travel is a larger theme in Breath of the Wild 2, Link is shown stopping and reversing time with a new ability. Link's new arm and glowing hand has fans pretty hyped up since it implies a potential return of the Triforce, which was mostly absent from the first Breath of the Wild, except for when Zelda appeared to use it at the end of the game. Furthermore, Twilight Princess stans are really excited because both Breath of the Wild 2 trailers evoke similar tones, colors, and style. The music is also similar between the games, and of course fans are even playing the trailers backwards to find secret messages, clues, or hidden melodies within the audio. We know there are tangible references to Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild, and now with Skyward Sword HD just around the corner, it might be even easier to connect that game too. Actually, there are tons of nods and references in Breath of the Wild to pretty much every previous Zelda game in the timeline, which makes things complicated because the timeline basically splits into 3 alternate realities after Ocarina of Time, but these references are usually more Easter egg in nature or could maybe even be interpreted as like a witty DLC idea. Integrating both Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess in a more tangible and canonical way may seem like a lot based on what we've seen, but some are even suggesting that Zant or Demise might be the real villains of the game instead of Ganondorf. Others say the new Breath of the Wild 2 trailer could indicate that the Breath of the Wild games are a linear sequel to Twilight Princess. There are some even more wild theories out there that suggest the corpse under Hyrule Castle isn't actually Ganondorf, but a store from Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which would mean Breath of the Wild 2 would take place on a divergent Breath of the Wild timeline, and I don't even know anymore because that game isn't isn't even canon. Okay, getting a little bit back to reality, Nintendo has said that Breath of the Wild comes at the end of the officially sanctioned timeline, which has people speculating Breath of the Wild 2 could finally sew the 3 infamous timelines of the series back together. But don't get your hopes up. Like we said at the top, it's a lot of theory crafting based on tirelessly cobbling together bits and pieces to support the best possible guess at a through line. Not to mention, Nintendo has been intentionally ambiguous when it comes to Zelda lore and notoriously conservative when it comes to making any really big changes to the Zelda formula in the past. I've hurt myself too many times with big Nintendo ideas to come up with theories of my own, but it's still fun to read everyone else's, even if they seem a little bit out there. Just posted this week was a 2-part series made by Zelda historians Zeltik and Monster Maze about the true intentions of the Zonai, an ancient race that left behind a number of ruins in Breath of the Wild. Who knows how much of it will land, but having fun conversations about what games could be is part of the fun of anticipating the next big masterwork from our favorite developers. So share your favorite Zelda thoughts and theories with us in the comments, like, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.